Hello my friend, in this video I'm going to show you how I brought a song to over 500,000 streams on Spotify. This is kind of a continuation of the video that I released last week, which is how I brought a song to 1.7 million streams on Spotify. If you want to check that out, there'll be a link above my head or wherever the hell it goes. But this is a continuation because this is the song that I released right after that, so about a month after that. So basically what happened is, after releasing music for, about, I think it was 12 months, whatever it was, for quite a while, and constantly starting to trigger the Spotify algorithm, like release radar a little bit over time, I eventually started getting on Spotify editorial playlists and getting big time streams from that, obviously. And basically once I hit that, I kind of started doing some research into like what exactly are you supposed to do after you get on an editorial placement. So if you've done any research on this yourself, and maybe this is part of your research, but there's no real information about what to do once you're actually on one. There's a lot of videos that talk about like, oh, here's how to get on Spotify editorial playlists. You pitch to the editors, and like that's kind of all the extent of that knowledge really seems to be. But if you actually were to get on one, how do you kind of stay on them? How do you get on more? That stuff wasn't very clear to me. So the main thing that I kind of was able to find was I found a quote from the Spotify marketing chief marketer or whatever the heck it was. And basically they said something to the extent of, once anyone lands on one of our playlists, the main thing we're looking at is like how reliant they are on that playlist. Like, are they just sitting back and enjoying the streams that we're giving them from that playlist? Or are they actually like driving more streams to that song? Are they getting on other playlists? Are they somehow getting their fans more engaged and increasing the streams? That seems to be the main thing. It's like, are they just sitting back, or are they like leaning forward? So basically the main thing that I decided to do was lean forward. So in the previous video I mentioned that I started to build up my own playlist, continue to run Facebook ads to that playlist to continue to drive traffic. And then one thing that I decided to do was just keep on releasing music. It's what I got really used to doing, and it's what seemed to work. And as you're going to see in a second, this one also seemed to be the trick, because this one caught on very similar editorial playlists and obviously did quite well as well. So let's dive into that real quick. So this is kind of an overview, a screenshot of how many streams this song has as of maybe a couple days before making this video or whatever. So over 500,000 streams, which is pretty fantastic. We'll dive into kind of the tactics of how I made this happen right away. So the next thing is kind of an overview. So the ad spend, which was primarily Facebook ads in the first month, and I didn't really run too many ads after the first month, so it was about $213 Canadian. Within the first 28 days, there was 88,000 streams. There was 143 new followers. The song was added to 361. It was saved 361 times, and it was added to 452 playlists. And this one was actually added to more editorial playlists than the first one. It was added to 9 editorial playlists. So let's dive a little bit deeper into this, and so you can learn how it happened, really. So one of the first things I want to go over is the streams tracker. So I'll painstakingly list out kind of the stats of how the ads are doing and how the song's performing, how many people are listening, saving, what the save and listen rates are, the playlist ads, the percentage of where the streams are coming from, profiles, playlists, that kind of things. And I'll do it on a daily basis to really understand how my song's performing, and it kind of helped me figure out when I can expect kind of algorithmic push and all that kind of stuff. And I did it for this track as well. So we'll dive into it. And by the way, while it's kind of loading, if you'd like a template like this, there is a link in the description to a 7-step Spotify checklist. One of the steps is tracking your streams, and I include that template as well in that checklist. So definitely check that out. So you can see here, this is actually an interesting one. I basically only ran ads for the first 16 days, as you can see here, at about $10 per day Canadian. And then I did try to do a playlist test as well, but I wasn't seeing as good as results as I was seeing with the playlist that I created for the previous song, so I kind of just stopped it pretty quickly. In terms of how long I tracked this one for, I think I tracked this for quite a while as well. So I tracked it for 88 days, so which is quite a bit of time. And if you look through this, you can see honestly, the cost per result, like in terms of Facebook ads, was not that great. 70 cents, 52 cents, 61 cents. Granted, it is Canadian, but still not the best numbers, of course, I would say. But moving on beyond that, You can see here, very similar story to what happened in my previous song. Once the song was really, like, the ads were really running in the first couple days and the stats were coming in, you could see that the save rate was hovering around 30 to 40%. The listen rate was about over 1.5%. It looked like one of the better days was 1.86 listen rate, so amount of people that are listening to the song over and over again. And it was only added to about 14 playlists before it got really added to the editorial playlist. So you can see here that it was only getting about 30, maybe 74, 61 streams per day. And then all of a sudden on the 9th day went up to 1,383, then 4,000, 5,000, 6,000, 5,000, much higher numbers at that point, which is clearly when the editorials kicked in. Again, same thing with the previous song. Once it gets added to an editorial playlist, your kind of like stats will drop dramatically. So you can see it went from 43% save rate to 6% to 2%, and then kind of hovering around 1%, slowly going up over time as well. Which is very interesting to see. You can see also, again, the listen rate dropped from like 1.8 it was at to 1.16, 1.2, and then of course over time, as people are re-listening on their own playlists, it's jumping up higher and higher, getting it up into the 2 ranges in the first couple of months. Again, you can see that main streams were coming from the profile, which is how I set up my Facebook ads, going straight to the profile. Encourages follows at a higher rate. And you can see that was the case until around where the playlist added, and then of course, once a playlist is bringing in thousands of streams like that, 92%, 95%, 96%, 97%, and I kind of stopped tracking it as much because it's clearly just all coming from the editorial playlist. That's kind of a look at the day by day over here. I think next what we'll dive into is the Spotify for Artists dashboard. So this is kind of an overview of how the song was doing in the first 28 days. You can see here that this was that period when there was like 20, 30 streams or so. It literally looks like there was 0 compared to like the big ass wave that comes in once the editorials gets added. So let's dive a little bit deeper into this and see what we can discover. So this is my Spotify for Artists backend, as you can see here. Very similar story to what we were just looking at. I think what we're going to want to do is dive into the song in particular so we could also take a look at the playlist that it's been added to. So what we can do is switch this to last 12 months. Seems to be one of the better things we could look at here. And you can see, again, this song was in editorial playlist for quite a while. It seems it was doing the best in January, slowly started getting moved down on the editorial playlist position, which is obviously going to impact the streams. What I noticed, actually, and I don't know if I mentioned this in any other video, but generally what I've seen in the editorial playlist is you might get added a bit higher up in the playlist, and then depending on how I think your song's getting engaged with, like listened to, skipped, or actually saved and all that kind of stuff, it may move up or down in the playlist. And so naturally over time, regardless of how it's doing, it's going to slowly start getting further down in the playlist until the editor decides to push you out. And you can see this is where it was doing very well in the editorial playlist, and then you can see it just drops the second they're like, okay, we're done with your song. Boom, you'll expect a very large drop, and then now this song is only getting about 500 streams per day or so. I think it was in like a smaller editorial playlist, and now it's only getting about a couple hundred streams per day, which is mostly just user playlists and that kind of stuff. Having a look at it now at this point, even still to this day, in the last 12 months, no, this is showing the last 28 days. So in the last 28 days, 1% from editorial playlists. Majority is now coming from algorithmic playlists, as well as like listener-owned playlists. This is the majority of where the streams are coming from now. Let's have a look here. I think it's too bad this only shows how far back can we go here? Okay, we can do the whole last year. So we can see the most of my streams were coming from, it doesn't really show you too much there, but it shows you most of what's coming from the United States, Germany, Russia, Mexico, Australia, United Kingdom, Netherlands, Canada, France, and Sweden were the main source of the streams in the last 28 days or so. So looking pretty good. And then we can switch over to the playlists, and we can do since 2015 to actually get a full look, which is nice. So to date, this song has been added to 1,531 playlists, which I love. The majority of the streams are coming from this House Focus playlist, as you can see here, but it was also added to a bunch of other Spotify editorial playlists like Electronic Running, Electronic Focus, Coffee Beats, Poolside Lounge, 100% Lounge, Lounge Soft House, And was there any other smaller ones? There might be some smaller ones in here. But those are the main ones, as you can see, or at least the ones worth mentioning. And then it's quite a bit coming from Radio, Your Daily Mix, and Discover Weekly in terms of the algorithmic playlists. So that's kind of the breakdown of what that looks like there. So moving on to how I actually kind of got these results. Looking at the Facebook ads. So in total, it was $213 spent in terms of the Facebook ads. So let's dive into my Facebook ads manager to give you a look of how that looks. So here you can see on the left, there's a couple of playlists that are called Midding, which is the name of the song. I don't even know if I mentioned it, but there's a couple different playlists that I was running, $60, $20, nothing too crazy that I was running. I kind of gave up on that playlist. The other one was working better, and I'm a little cheap with my money. I didn't want to have a whole bunch of different campaigns running. But generally, again, you can see like these over here is where I was running a bunch of different tests in the first couple of weeks, and not the best numbers I've ever seen. Like 34 cents Canadian for me is pretty good, but like $1, 71 cents, 51 cents Canadian, 74 cents Canadian, not the greatest numbers at all. Which, yeah, I wasn't too excited about the performance of this Facebook ads campaign. I wouldn't even have tried to add a playlist campaign to it, seeing these numbers, if it didn't pick up on the editorial playlist. It was one of those things where when the editorial playlists come in, you can calculate to some good extent of how much money that you'll be receiving in the royalties. And that kind of gives me a bit of more wiggle room with budget that I can run some budget on. But seeing how this one was performing on the Facebook side, it was clear this wasn't worth pursuing any further and just letting the editorial kind of do its thing, or else it's kind of wasted money, in my opinion, especially when I have other campaigns running, and the other one was a playlist campaign, and this song was on that playlist, so it was helping it out also, so it didn't make sense to me to go any further. But with that said, let's dive a little bit deeper into one of the better performing ones here, which is really none of them, but let's take a look at, I guess, this one here. So one I was running was, I think I was still starting to run some different artists, so I have a couple different ad sets. I was running Disclosure and Daft Punk against Bonobo and similar artists was the main artist that I was running against here. Having a look at how the ad set was set up, very similar to the last video, similar, more primarily English speaking first world areas. This one is more of an artist campaign instead of lookalikes that I was running. So I had a couple of different artists here, and then narrowed further by Spotify. As usual, I was running to everything except for the audience network, which is generally a waste of money. The rest letting Facebook algorithm have more to work with so that it can figure out what's doing the best. And then in terms of the actual ad itself, very similar to what I had running for the previous ads. This is very similar to what I run now. It's a little bit less flashy what I run now, but basically just similar animations like this with different points in the song. So there's A and then B. I also tested a different animation. I had a talented artist named Matt Calvin create this, which he was kind of like the canvas, the Spotify canvas. It was created for the canvas, and I kind of overlaid the more ad-specific animations over top of it, which I don't think it performed as well, even though I think it looks way cooler. But it's one of those things, like more direct and to the point seems to work a lot better on Facebook. And I tried kind of this little Grogu thing, which is similar to the Obi-Wan thing that I did on the last song, but this didn't do as well. But this seems to be the easiest, best way. It's simpler to create this kind of thing, and it also seems to perform a lot better. Moving beyond this to the actual rest of the ad, main thing is that there is no text, there's no headline. I don't bother with any of that stuff. There's a listen now call to action button, and it is going to a URL, like a smart music link URL. These are ones that I build myself on WordPress and using a drag and drop editor called Thrive Architect. If you want to learn more about kind of the theory of how you can use these music links to your own benefit, as well as how you can apply that theory to whatever link you're using, if it's hyped in or toned in, or if you don't have one, or if you want to use something like I'm using, there's a free course in that checklist that I was talking about earlier, where on the step where it's like, okay, now you need to prepare your smart links for your upcoming release, there is a completely free course on how to get set up with that theory that I mentioned, as well as how you can get set up with WordPress and Thrive Architect and actually get the templates that I use as well, the templates that I've used to get 4 million streams on Spotify so far. That's all in there, and it's all free. Definitely check that out, link in the description. Then moving forward with the rest of kind of what I ran on this campaign, very similar to what I usually do now. There might be a little like a face fit announcing the songs coming up, then basically just a bunch of different versions of that artwork spinning with different portions of the song mixed in with things like pictures when I did a picture of me at a party and put like the playlist that I got added to over my eyes, that kind of crap. Definitely like to overlay it with things like little performance videos. I think is good. You see there's a couple different performance videos. I got added to a cool lo-fi house playlist by a label called Fresh Goodies, and after getting added to that playlist, I reached out to them to thank them, and then ended up releasing a couple songs on that label, which is cool. Another thing where it's the power of releasing music often and running ads to it, like all sorts of cool things can happen. And then doing this I thought was also interesting. I think I might have so this was an interesting post that I did on this where this song, Midding in particular, is something that I released a year before I released it on Spotify. I just released it on Facebook, oddly enough. And you can see here when I first released it, it had different artwork, which is one thing. But you can see here that on Facebook, it got 61 views and it got 4 likes, and one of them was me, right? And then about a year later, I needed content to basically, I was like trying to keep releasing music, and I ended up re-releasing this in a way, or releasing it proper on Spotify, and you can see here it did 52,000 streams, and then later 500,000 streams, which I think is kind of interesting. I think some people might think that you need to constantly be releasing new stuff, but if you can look in your old back catalog, and especially if it didn't perform that well, there's nothing stopping you from like taking it down and then trying it again, especially if like you're now at a point where you've built up more of a fan base. That song could also maybe be shown to those people and have like a better chance at life. That's something you can definitely explore 100%, and something I would definitely encourage doing. Moving beyond that, I think that is actually it. So yeah, there it is, 500,000 streams or so in about, I don't know how long it's been, 10 or 12 months. Oh shit, it's been almost exactly a year since the song got released. Actually, it's actually been almost a year. So, or it's been a year. That's cool. That's very cool. Yeah, it's cool to see how that can happen. Anyways, hopefully you found this video useful. Hopefully I didn't ramble too much and you actually kind of got something out of this. And again, there is that free checklist. It's completely interactive, so for each step you can unfurl it and learn a little bit more about that step, why it's important, why you should do it, with links to more information on the step where it's like, hey, time to set up the smart links. There is a free course on how you can get it set up with how I do it, or a little bit more of the theory of how you can apply kind of this Spotify algorithm hacking stuff to your own smart links. And then also I am planning on adding a free Facebook ads course to that checklist as well, on the step where it's like, okay, time to set up your Facebook ads, kind of start to finish, getting set up with Facebook ads to launching your first conversion campaign, if that's where you're at in your career. Completely free, all in that checklist. Definitely probably the most helpful thing I could do for you. But with that said, hopefully you found this video useful. If you did, like and subscribe and all that good stuff. And I'll see you in the next video, my friend. Have a good one.